Good morning, Prof. Shahzad.
Good morning.
Yeah, Bu Dian, good morning. My name
Good
is
morning.
Darussalam, Prof. What time actually there in UK?
I'm not actually in the UK. I'm in Indonesia.
Oh, you are in Indonesia right now. Oh, I thought that you are in UK right now.
No, I'm actually in Indonesia. So yes, I'm 9 a.m. as you are in Indonesia.
Yeah. So how long will you stay in Indonesia, Prof?
So I'll be here until 8th of November.
On 8th of November, you have what we call that activities in Indonesia, yeah, Prof?
Yeah, I've got a visit to Bali, so that'd be a
Oh,
holiday.
you are in Bali currently?
No, now in Yogyakarta.
In Yogyakarta, wow. Enjoy Yogyakarta, Prof. I'm also from Indonesia, but currently I'm living in Malaysia. I'm from Palembang, Prof.
Palembang. Okay.
Have you ever heard about Palembang or South Sumatra?
Yes, I heard of Sumatra.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah. So is it? Yeah, it's with that. So it's still in Indonesia. You said you're from Malaysia,
yes,
but
yes. No, I'm Indonesia, but currently I'm doing my postdoctoral scholar.
Okay, right.
In Malaysia, maybe because I'm also from accounting department. I hope I can invite you in Malaysia if you wish to come here.
Yeah, are you in Kuala Lumpur or something?
Oh, all right. Are you have you attached with one of the university in Malaysia?
I've got some connection with the Malaya University.
University Malaya. I'm from UITM, University Technology Mara.
Which is not in Kuala Lumpur, right?
In Selangor, yes. Very close to Kuala Lumpur, actually, Prof.
Yeah, okay. So maybe we'll have a chat. We'll have a chat later.
Yes. Later on, yeah. I will be your moderator today, inshallah.
Okay, great.
Prof, originally you from Bangladesh or from which part of?
Yeah, I born and brought up in Bangladesh.
In Bangladesh, yeah. I went to Dhaka in 2019. Yes, I love your food. Very nice. Yeah.
I'm sure you don't like the city.
Yeah, but Dhaka is very crowded. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Very crowded. Yeah. Yeah, I think Bu Dian, sorry I disturbed.
Okay. Halo, Pak Darussalam.
Hello there. Hello.
Prof. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yeah. So I think it's now 9. So we will start our visiting professor for Apsae Insight. Everyone, we start our visiting professor agenda at 9. So I make some preparation for Professor Indra Bastian. Are you there? I cannot see.
Okay, ready.
Okay, Thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
Dr. Mahsun, here already in. And Professor Erlina, are you in? Okay. Dr. Fakhrusaman, are you in? So there is only Prof. Ibas. Prof. Ibas, can we start now?
Yes, ready.
Thank you, Prof. Ibas. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yes, no.
Ibu dan Bapak, here we have an Apsae Insight under visiting professor agenda with Professor Shahzad Udin from Essex University. The objective of this activity of this program is to we have another insight from professor outside Indonesia so that we can learn from him what happened or what should we do that we can implement in our country, particularly, especially in government sector. So without waiting too long, I invite Professor Indra Bastian as our chief to deliver his speech. Professor Indra Bastian, time is yours. Sorry, Prof, you are mute.
Yeah. Thank you, Dian. First of all, hi, Professor Shahzad. Yeah. So actually, it's in Jogja, no? Yeah. And second, Professor Darussalam. Yeah. And all my friends, Prof. Masun, Prof. Alina, and others professors that's already in the in this link, and lectures, yeah, and lectures our Indonesian for in the public sector accounting. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, yeah, we starting a new vision, a new programs about how we are able to interconnect with the international idea, international inspirations for whole Indonesian. This program will be an inspiration program for many public sector accounting lecturers in Indonesia. The topic today is about international public sector management accounting. That topic actually we never discussed deeply in terms of what is the content, what is the purpose, and what is the critical point when we have to teach. We have to discuss about international public sector management accounting. What we know up to now is only how we discuss about international, about financial accounting in the public sector. So we do expect that many lecturers in Indonesia today will get something insight about new terms about international public sector management accounting. So thank you, Prof. Shahzad, becoming our lectures, becoming our lectures today for a new terms in Indonesian public sector accounting lecturers and also visitors.
So sorry, Indra, could I just say that I was actually I was thinking that it's just slightly different what you were expecting. I was thinking to talk about how to publish in top journal, in a public sector journal. That was kind of the title I was thinking of.
Oh yeah.
I thought you asked me to talk about how to publish
okay.
articles in a top public sector accounting journal.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, Professor. Okay. Thank you so much. What we will do now today is maybe still something that we need to know, since Professor is one of the main editors in the high top journal, so they know about what is actually the preference of the topic, preference of the reviewers during the time. Okay. Thank you very much, Dian. So today we will get something from this insight. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Bastian. Thank you, Professor Indra Bastian. I think it is okay, Prof. Shahzad, if you want to deliver about publication in public sector, as long as mostly, maybe all of us is an academician, whether we are a student or whether we are a lecturer. We all students, and we all have a specific field in public sector. So it's fine if you deliver about how to write, how to publish our writing in public sector journal, particularly when you are the editor. It is very good. It will give value too for us. Maybe next we will talk about management accounting. It's fine. So we also have, I will introduce you our distinguished moderator, Pak Darussalam. Hello.
Halo Bu, ya.
Sorry, I have to mute all. So when you want to speak, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. So make it our webinar smooth. We can listen your voice. So I have to mute all. Sorry for that. And when you want to speak, you may raise or you unmute yourself. Pak Darussalam is very. I don't think that you are very close with public sector. I think that you are from what we call linguistic or something else in Malaysia, but you learn financial criminology. It's very related to public sector, particularly when you took your master in computer science. I think it will be good value for public sector. So Pak Mahsum, you can catch him. Ask him to join with Apsae. Apsae is talking about everything happen in public sector, Pak Darussalam, and also.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So Apsae is a forum for students, for lecturer, for everyone who have concern in public sector development. So this is regularly we do in our program to invite speakers from Indonesia and outside Indonesia to deliver their knowledge so that we, the member of Apsae, can get insight how to conduct we as a public servant, we as a lecturer, to do our service in the society. So, Pak Darussalam, without waiting too long, I deliver to you. Time is yours, Pak Darussalam.
Ya,
Thank you.
terima kasih ya. Terima kasih Bu Dian. Terima kasih. Thank you very much for your opportunity actually for this morning. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbis shrahli sadri wa yassirli amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Darussalam. Will be your moderator for today's seminar, or maybe we can call workshop. It is my pleasure to welcome all the distinguished guests and participants today for the for the seminar with the title "How to Publish in the Top-Ranking Journal." Praise to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. We have been graced to chance together in this momentous event. The Honorable Director of the Association of Public Sector Accounting Education of Apsae, the distinguished presenter, Professor Dr. Shahzad Udin, and great participants. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Today we have very qualified presenter who will be talking about how to publish in top-ranking journal. This is very nice. I think I also willing to learn how to publish in top-ranking journal, especially how to publish in Q1, Q2, or in WOS right now, and ABDC from Australia, and then Scopus, especially for Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move to the next session, I would like to introduce our honorable speaker, Professor Dr. Shahzad Udin. She is a professor in accounting and the director of Essex Accounting Center, University of Essex, United Kingdom. He also is like Ibu Dian and Professor said that he is also the editor of Journal of Accounting in Emerging Economy, or GAEE. And actually he began his academic career in United Kingdom in 1998 at Queen's University of Belfast, after he finishing his master degree and PhD from very good university, which is University of Manchester. And Professor Shahzad has published on management control, including labor control, governance, and sustainability in varieties of organizational culture setting. Geographically, his publication draw from various research sites located in 4 continents, such as Asia, Africa, Europe, and North America. Methodologically, his research in qualitative traditions, drawing from sociology, anthropology, development, economic, and philosophy. And he also published in top accounting, development, sociology, and philosophy journals, such as in accounting, organization, and society, development and change, social science, and medicine, work in employment and society, and journal of critical realism. Very impressive biography. We have to learn a lot from Professor Shahzad. And ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, please welcome our speaker, Professor Dr. Shahzad Uddin.
Thank you very much, everyone. So I'm very pleased that to be invited, and I can see we already have 200 participants. It's great to see that a lot of academics are interested in public sector accounting and practice and research. So this is great to see. And probably I won't have the similar number of audience in the recent few years, because usually when you present something like that, we don't have many numbers. So this is good to see that number of people attended today to at least to talk about public sector. And although I'm going to talk about how to publish in a public sector journal, but this is, I hope that you guys will enjoy. And I'm going to give you some tips because I want to make it worthwhile for whoever listening to this session. Then next time they submit papers to journals, top journals, and they will be able to at least not just rejected, but of course, at best, will be able to publish. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see whether it works. I think host has to enable me to screen sharing, I think.
Just did, Prof.
Okay, you did. Okay, I can share it now. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Clear.
Okay.
Yes, Prof.
Thank you. So what I plan to do, I've got 4 parts in my presentation. What I like to do that you can stop me anytime you want and you can ask me a question if moderator allows it.
Yes,
or,
sure.
Or if moderator says at the end of the presentation, that's also fine. So one can write question in the chat box. So these are the 4 parts of this presentation. First, I'm going to introduce the journal that you mentioned before, and then also public sector journal that we're referring to. And then I'll be talking about what is the structure of a good paper for academic point of view. And then I'll be talking about how to write to avoid desk rejection at least. And finally, how to submit, how to handle the reviews when you receive it. I clearly hope that after this session, you would be able to sort of get something new out of this presentation, and probably we can discuss it a bit further if you have any question in our discussion time. Right, okay, so this journal, the reason I'm introducing this journal is because this is obviously a main journal, only journal that focus on accounting in emerging economy. So it was founded, I founded the journal in 2010 with Emerald. When we started it, it is quite, wasn't very, because it's very difficult to get papers from emerging economy. But now we have progressed a lot. We receive at least 500 submissions in a year, and we can only publish 33 articles. So we do receive a lot of papers, but we want to, this is one of the purposes, I want to improve the level of submission so they can accept more papers. So primary focus, of course, is accounting. And because of emerging economy, we also focus on the issues of development. And public sector is one of the development vehicles for emerging economy. So I really do welcome papers on public sector in this journal, and my interest, of course, on public sector. I have published a number of articles in top journals on public sector. So this is the journal, and when I say emerging economy, excuse me, is basically, our definition is pretty broad. I wanted to include also non-Eastern European countries. So non-Western countries, anything from say Western European Anglo-American countries are not included. So except Western European and Anglo-American countries, any other countries would be included in our definition of emerging economy, because we also receive papers from Eastern European countries, which we accept. So only papers we do not consider from America, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and few other Western European countries. And in fact, we do receive papers from them, and we just reject them, of course. So this paper, this journal at the moment is ranked in many outlets in the world. More importantly, is now Q1. I think this is something that you guys use a lot more. So SGR ranking is at the moment Q1. And of course, it is also WOS indexed, SCCI indexed, we've got impact factor. So this is a good journal for you guys to publish, and I'll be happy to entertain any of your, any of you want to submit primary feedback. I'll be able to give you some indication whether your article would be useful to our journal or how can you improve it. I hope this talk would influence that kind of submission. Okay, when I say top ranking, so we say if it is ranked in a top ranking outlet. So it's ABS is a kind of UK setting, ADBC Australia, SGR is kind of worldwide, and NSD is a Norwegian one. So if journal is ranked in this kind of outlet, we would say it's a top ranking. But I know it's very crude way of saying it, but there is no other way you can differentiate between these too many journals at the moment in the market. So we just look into this ranking outlet to decide where to send our papers to. So for UK academics, they look at ABS, for Australian ADBC. And I guess you probably look at SGR as a kind of a ranking outlet.
Yeah.
So public sector journal, when I say public sector journal, because this is a public sector accounting association, and this is important for you guys to target this kind of journal, including our journal, of course. But this is also top public sector journal I recommend for you to look. Public administration, one of the top journal, financial accountability and management, public administration review, international review, administrative science, and public management review. I have published in many of those journals. So I can be able to rely on my experience as an editor, also as a editorial board member on these journals, and as someone who published in this journal, to say how to write a good paper so that editor will not best reject, plus you subsequently can publish in the journal. So all of my presentation slides, you'll see that will be based on those kind of experience I just mentioned. Okay, so if you have any question, you can write on the chat box. I don't see the chat box, so of course, moderator will see it, and then can pass it on
Yes,
to
Prof.
me.
There is a question, Prof. Actually, is it okay? We just like when you
sure.
are doing a presentation, so I will give a question. Not me. There is a question from one of my professor. Actually, she interested to. Is there any opportunity for us to create what we call for you to create for us for special issue in your journal, Prof?
Very good question. I wish I knew who is proposing it. So
yeah, this is
yes.
my director of Accounting Research Institute.
Okay, I think answer is yes. So what we need to do, that there is a form to fill up, and you send the proposal to me using those forms, so connect with me, and then see So there's a lot of information to be inserted in that, and then we will assess it in terms of its feasibility, in terms of the promise of quality submission, and in terms of the topic. So it could be sort of accounting in Southeast Asia or something like that. So yeah, so justification and things like that would be needed to be set out in that form. So I can easily send this form to you guys if you want.
All right.
And we can
So
have the discussion
really
later
good.
on.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Answer is yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Please carry on,
Okay.
Prof.
Any other question? Okay, so we have now a good, what is the structure of a good paper? So that's something I want to talk about. So in a paper that we think should not be just rejected, we usually see sections here, like introduction, review of literature is a typical subsection you usually see, or section usually in a paper: theoretical framework, research method, findings, discussion, conclusion. So what I'm going to do is just to give you a brief outline, because it's difficult to cover everything in a detail. And what actually I'm doing in Gajah Mada, exactly doing a 2-hour session under each section. So for here today, what I'm going to do is just summarize that in 2 hours. I'll be talking about how to write a good introduction, how to write a good review, literature review, and so on and so forth. Okay, so first, in a good paper, 3 things that for public sector journal, because my focus is always public sector journal, because this is the audience that we have today. So in a good public sector paper, we need to see 2 things. One is that academic importance, that's the first thing you need to establish, meaning that whether your paper is contributing to the public sector debate. Now, public sector debate or debate in the literature that you are trying to focus on. Now, this has to be not just Indonesian debate. It's a debate that's happening within the public sector. For instance, if you talk about any kind of a debate on, say, public sector budgeting or public sector performance, whatever debate it is in the literature, you need to point out this paper, your paper, is contributing to that debate. So that's the first thing to establish in any paper. So I'm going to talk about how actually you can do that. So it's easy to say, but it's difficult to do. So I'm going to just slightly focus on that later on. Second thing, I think, is because it's a public sector journal, often, not always, often, that they wish to see how this paper is going to impact policy, or how is it important at a policy level, how is it going to improve public sector practices. So these 2 things that perhaps is important for a public sector journal. So one thing I wanted to say here, that you can publish paper in public sector journal, top public sector journal, without policy relevance. But what you cannot do, publish papers without academic importance or without academic contribution. So this is why I'm going to focus a bit more on how actually one can do that. So this is first introduction section. When you write introduction section, I just point out some of those issues or some of those steps or paras or ideas that you have to put forward. First, you have to talk about the academic debate. So in first para, usually in a good paper, we see that relevant academic debate is being referred to when they start the first few sentences. So immediately then one can see that this paper is good for not only for Indonesia or any other local other countries, but it is good for everyone who is interested in public sector. So first para, often some papers focus on the academic debate. You can also first para of the introduction section can focus on practical importance, that is possible, but ultimately these two has to happen in subsequent paras. Academic debate, referring to academic debate, and also practical importance. So I can see there's a question coming up in the chat box. Okay, so let me know when there is a question.
Yes, Prof. Can we back to the previous slide, talking about practical, what is, no, practical importance.
Yeah, yes.
Can you explain more? What do you mean by practical importance and policy relevance? Because for me,
Okay, I understand the question. I understand the question. Don't worry. So, what do you mean? I'm going to explain that to you now.
Okay, thank you.
So, practical importance, if relevant, I said. So, practical importance would be if you say that practical importance can come from worldwide, can come from your local context. You could say at the moment, public sector financial crisis is happening, and there's a crisis in measurement, or there is a crisis in budgeting, there's a crisis, so something about with practical side of things, or policy side of things. Or you could say government at the moment wants to reform public sector, or something like that. So something's happening within the practical world, within this public sector. So that's what I meant by practical importance. Okay? Does that answer your question?
What do you mean by practical importance and policy relevance? Does it always
Same.
Same? Okay. Thank you.
Same. Sorry. Policy relevance and practical importance is same. Practical means policy means practice here. Yeah, it's same. So in a paper, so policy relevance and academic debate, first one or two paras should sort of focus on that, so that I don't have to read the whole section or whole paper to understand what is it practically relevant, is it policy relevance here, or is there any academic debate going on? So you need to sort of start with first one or two paras. It doesn't matter whether you write the policy relevance first or whether you write the academic debate first, but it has to be there somewhere in the first few paras. Now, academic debate then needs to be elaborated. So you have to develop that question that we call it problematization, which is establishing the gap in the literature. So this is you have to write it in a kind of a one para in introduction, because a lot of papers don't want to, a lot of journals don't want to see too long introduction. So you need to summarize what exactly the gap in the literature you're trying to address. So that is kind of academic, followed by the academic debate. So one could say, I can give you example if you, so I can give example like the current paper. So the paper that we published in International Review of Administrative Science. In that paper, we basically said, without mentioning the context, where is it coming from, or anything like that, we mentioned that smart city is one of these important public sector reforms that are happening around the world. So all the countries trying to build the smart cities. But we wanted to connect that smart city debate with the PPP, public-private partnership. And we said that there has not been any study that focusing on directly to how PPP is contributing or not contributing to the smart cities project. So we sort of bring these two kind of literature. We brought these two kind of literature together. So that's the way sort of telling the reader, look, there's a debate going on in the smart city. There's a debate going on in PPP, public-private partnership, but there has not been much done on the idea of how PPP is connected to smart cities and how they're being explored in a different context. So we kind of use that as our academic debate point. Then, before even saying this is from somewhere from Indonesia or from Malaysia or other countries, we just simply pointed out what is going on the academic literature. So after establishing that, then you can say that I'm going to address this question drawing on the context or whatever the case study you are case study or data are coming from. So you use your location as an important way to illustrate the point in the literature. So you don't say no study, you do not say no study has been done in Indonesia or Malaysia. You rather say your Malaysian experience or Indonesian experience would be important and useful to shed light on the gap in the literature. So that's the way you're kind of selling your stuff. So this is an important point because only American authors don't have to recognize, don't have to say, or don't have to sell their context. But all other countries, when you publish, when you publish in a journal, not your local journal, then you have to always say why your country would be interesting in contributing to this particular gap in the literature. If you publish in an Indonesian journal, there is no need to say anything. But if you publish, say, international journal, they always have to say it. But so you say it in a way that only Indonesia or Malaysia can be useful to establish this gap because of particular feature of this research context. I can give you a further example of how we did it in our smart city paper. So what we, after establishing the debate in the literature and saying this is where the gap is, then we said, we're going to illustrate this matter from Japanese experience. Because then we said, why? We said, we basically said, because Japan has a unique cultural setting, and that gives a different shape of public-private sector partnership phase.
Excuse me, Prof.
And yeah.
Do you think that we can see the paper you're talking about? Can we see?
You can see it. Let me, but that will take longer time, I guess, to finish because there are a lot of other things to do. Yeah.
Maybe if it's possible,
so basically, the main point I'm trying to make, you establish the gap in the literature, then use your feature of the context as a important research site to contribute to address the research question that you identified. So do not say, no one has studied in Indonesia, for instance, or I did not say, no one has studied that in Japan, because that's not the point. We first established the gap in the literature, then said, Japanese experience would be useful. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this is kind of a selling your context, that this is a unique situation, unique context that is really useful to what we identified in the gap in the literature. When you read this paper, you probably see it. I can share it later on if you want. I'll send it to whoever the email, have the email address. Then you can see the examples, in a better way. Okay, so you develop the research question, then you make your context as a selling point to address this gap in the literature. And this question is always bothered me because I always see paper says no one has studied this in my country. No, that's not your selling point. Your selling point is you first establish the gap in the literature and say your country's experience would be interesting to help you to address this gap in the literature. I hope it's clear. And then we'll further discuss. If you have any question, do set up, send the question in the text. The next point is theoretical directions. So theoretical direction is usually not that important in public sector journal. I haven't seen many papers that with huge amount of theories, but some people use theory to establish the gap in the literature. So if that is the case, yes, that's important for you to explore. For instance, one can say that this just address these issues in the literature, a number of theory used. However, they have missed some of those important insight. So I'm going to use this theory to fill the gap in the literature. So in that case, it is fine. So you can use those kind of theoretical lens as a point of departure in the literature. Again, then you have to say why your research context is important in that sense. So theoretical direction is, you can have it, but you don't have to have it. You only have it if it is important for you to establish the gap into the literature. So this is only, I'm talking about public sector journal. After reading a lot of public sector articles, this is the way I see it. So not all journals, I'm just simply focusing on public sector journals. Some accounting journal do not, would like a separate theoretical contribution, but not public sector journal. So, research question. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, Prof. Shahzad, sorry. It is interesting because I'm also doing what we call the writing a paper, but one of my reviewers suggests me to give a theoretical direction or like theoretical lens in my introduction. So if you don't mind, Prof, would you mind to what we call that maybe show us how to what we call it, write the theoretical direction in our introduction? If you have the example, it will be very cool. I think it is really interesting. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, of course. As I said, these things really takes a lot of time to explain because, you know, right. So basically, the point, I guess, I haven't seen your reviewers' comments. They're trying to make, look, if you say that this gap, because of existing theories, are not able to explain this gap in the literature. If you claim this kind of thing, then you have to provide your own theoretical direction. That basically taking a new theory that has not been used before within the public sector literature, and they say, my theory or this theoretical framework might be useful to shed new light on this literature because of this and this and this. So that's what it is. So maybe your reviewer asking that existing theoretical framework wasn't enough to explain so may I ask you, is that a public sector journal?
This is related to the what we call that economics and also management, economic management.
Yeah, so it's not public. So I'm saying because it's public sector journal, just usually focus on the gap in the literature. They don't bother about all these theoretical lenses.
All right.
Yeah, so I hope that explains. So explain is a little bit, but I'm sure that a lot of things to discuss for, as I said, it takes a really, really long time.
All right, Prof. Another question from Rida Perwita. Yeah. She asks you about when we compare developed versus developing condition, it is under the journal topic. When we compare developed versus developing condition, it is under the journal topic. Maybe under developed countries and developing countries. It is related to what we call that public sector journal.
I actually slightly, I'm not sure what the question is about.
Yeah.
Maybe it's slide will explain this better. So we're talking about this academic debate, right? So I think your question is about, okay, is my debate is coming from the context, or is debate coming from the literature? So academic debate always comes from the literature. Doesn't matter which countries. So you have to establish the gap in the literature without thinking of the Indonesian or any context. You just simply read the literature and see what they have missed. So you have to always do. Then you bring your unique conditions, research site, and that may be developing countries, may be developed countries. So, for instance, if you establish the gap in the literature, doesn't matter if journal is interested in developing countries or journal interested in developed countries, they are all will publish the paper because you are contributing to the academic debate. So public administration journal, for instance, we are now at the moment, one of our paper almost accepted. And by the way, this is Indonesian context. And we sell the Indonesian context as a unique point to make a contribution to the academic debate. So public administration publishes usually papers from all over the world and mainly a researcher from the developed countries. But they're willing to publish from any countries as long as you contribute to the academic debate. So our paper is going to contribute to the academic debate of budget politics. So we made a point. Budget politics is something about just not about politics between what we see in the UK, USA. It's also about how culturally is constrained. So we made a point, cultural point is an important factor when they debate about budget politics. So, and then we said, Indonesian context would be interesting way of saying it. So we sold, or hopefully sold our idea that Indonesian case is an interesting way to shed light on the role of, say, how budget politics is influenced by the cultural condition. You see, so this is how you need to establish your academic debate must come from the literature, but you can use your context to sell it better. Okay, so I don't know whether that answered the question of the questioner, but if not, but ask the question right on the chat box, we can continue our discussion. Okay, so how do you actually then start your academic debate? First, you have to specify the literature more broadly, where you are contributing to. For instance, you can say CSR, or because it's public sector, it must be about public sector. But generally speaking, CSR is a kind of broad topic. So you point out the broad topic within the public sector. You could say budgeting, you could say public sector reforms, you could say NPM. So a kind of broad topic that you bring first. Then within that topic, you specify a particular area, a particular debate within that. So within that NPM, within that budgeting, within that whatever broad topic you within the public sector you're contributing to. So you need to find the debate within the broad literature that you're contributing to. So first broad literature, then you specify debate within that literature. So that is the way to going forward. And it's still, we're not talking about the context. You just simply focus on the literature of public sector. I can see the question in the chat box.
No, the question in English can be represented only one province. For example, they have a question also, Prof, from Ibu Penny Trisnawati. For example, in Indonesia case, can we represent only in one province because we have 34 provinces in Indonesia? is it okay if we just represent one province in Indonesia?
Okay, so this is a question from Fanny, right?
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you for asking for this question. Yes, so basically it's not about the number of province or number of cases. It's about unique feature of your case. If you identify a province and your identified province has a particular unique characteristics that would help us to address the debate in the literature, yes. So it doesn't matter one or half. So it's just as long as that case has an important unique characteristics that helps you to establish that. So that's what's so our case, it came from one province, and I'm not going to tell you which one. That will be a problem, but yes, came from very specific province, and we found some issues that are important and relevant to inform the debate. So yeah, it can be from one province or one district, one case. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Prof. And also, Pak Mauladi, you can ask a question directly to Prof. Shahzad.
Okay, do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, Prof. Thanks for
Hello there.
your valuable or insights discussions for today. I have some problems related to my own papers. Actually, my research interest is related to forensic accounting, financial crime, and organizational fraud. And regarding the research context, it's just a focus on the public sectors. But I found difficulty to find the appropriate journal, which one is much more suitable for my paper in this context, because my papers use interdisciplinary approach from criminology, sociology, and accounting studies or literature or something like that. But when I sent my own papers to a public sector in Emerald, I got I think I don't know how to say that, these rejections or desk rejections, because the editor suggested for me to send to a criminological journal or sociological journal. But this is a very difference with my own research interest. If I have to send this paper to criminological or sociological journals.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that your question?
Yeah. I need your suggestions because yeah, this is very difficult for me. Yeah.
Good. Your name is Arch?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Please.
Yeah. Right. Okay, thank you for asking this question, and obviously I have a slides for that.
Okay.
Basically, and at the end of this presentation, I would be doing a slides to say how to submit, how to find the articles, how to be strategic, and how to handle all those things, practical issues of submission to publication. I've got a slides for that. But still, I want to answer your question. The only reason, perhaps this editor ask you to submit to sociology or criminology journal is because maybe your academic debate within those literature, not the public sector literature.
Yeah.
So exactly this is the reason.
Yeah.
So if you identify the literature within the public sector, then they will not say that.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pada Bapak Prof.
Okay.
Arif
Yeah, sorry, Pak Ade.
Selamat pagi, Pak Dr. Fauji. Selamat pagi, Bapak Salamun, Bapak Kiai Haji Dr.
I'm sorry, Prof. Sorry, Prof. Because I'm not the
apakah kami memastikan suara sudah dapat terdengar semua ini?
Okay, I think it's a different thing, right?
Yes, would you mind to unmute him, Prof. Shahzad, because I'm not the host?
Kalau
Ya.
seandainya sudah dapat terdengar, kami ucapkan terima kasih setelah bergabung dalam webinar ekonomi syariah.
Oh, wait, Prof. Wait, Prof.
Bentar
Sorry.
lagi akan segera kita mulai acara webinar tersebut. Oke, terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
continue, Prof.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
please.
Prof, for the disturb.
I think probably it's better than we actually take a question later on.
Yes, better you continue. Yes, but better. I think better you continue for your presentation.
Some
Then
of
we
those
can.
question is happening is which actually answer go later.
Yes. Okay, Prof. Please.
I'll take the question later. And people
Okay.
in the meantime, type their question on the chat box. I will answer it at the end of the session. Okay.
Okay, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Okay, thank you. So, so this is the way to first, I think we said how to do the introduction section. So you have to identify academic debates and then practical importance and so on and so forth. Now, how to write the literature review section. That's the second part of the this paper. Now, this is one of the things I wanted to point. I got a lot of points here, but one of the most important point of writing a good literature review and get the attention of the editors is that literature review must be focused on the research question you identified earlier. So if the question about, say, smart city and PPP, my literature review must be just smart city and PPP, nothing else. So this is quite important. And people often write a lot of other stuff. That shouldn't happen. And also it has to be non-descriptive. Don't say somebody said that, somebody said this. That doesn't take you anywhere. What you need to do is just write in a thematic manner. And ultimately, the literature review should feature a question, the research question you already identified in the introduction section. So last para, in some way, is the good para to draft, where after reviewing the literature, you then summarize what has been done, what hasn't been done, and what's the research question. Basically, elaborate the research question that you already identified in the introduction. So your literature review should be dedicated to justify the research question academically. So that's the purpose of the literature review section. And for quantitative research, quantitative papers, that is kind of hypothesis, you defend the hypothesis. So you have a main question, then you defend the hypothesis using the previous studies, same as qualitative paper. So I think I would like you to note these features of a good literature review. So we've got how many? Any good literature review have this kind of feature. First, literature review has to be related to the research question. I think we established that. Then literature review should identify the key issues within the literature. And remember, you don't write descriptively, you simply write in a thematic manner. So from the literature review, the paper you read, then find 5 or 6 or some themes, which is linked to the research question, because ultimately you have to justify your research question. So identify key issues within literature. And that's how you demonstrate your knowledge of the topic. Because by identifying key issues, you're basically telling the reader, I know what is going on within the literature, and this is the way I'm going to justify the question. And always mention the key references of in the literature. Do not miss the key articles when you write the literature review. And there's a few other things I can offer you. For example, quick, do not always be recent, and you always use recent articles. For instance, now 2022. So I say 10 years probably good. 2012 would be the good last one you should refer. So always in around 21, 22, 20 kind of literature. But you can use older references, that's fine, as long as they're important and very, very important within the key literature. For example, in the public sector, there's a lot of work we always refer, which are very old, that's fine. But if it is not very key article, do not mention the old articles. I think also in some, especially in a good literature, you need to highlight what is fact, what is opinion. So what is the commentary and what is factual evidence? And then importantly, highlight the conflicting evidence so that you can sort of open up your space to contribution. Because when you open up the conflicting evidence, then you can say, there is a debate going on here, and here is my contribution to this debate. Because usually mixed evidence lead to the research question. So all those features I just mentioned has to be in your literature review. Good literature review section should have those figures. Then summarize what has been done and what needs to be done. So this is an important part of your literature review section. And ultimately, your section should lead to a formal research question that is linked to your literature review. So if I summarize it, introduction, you briefly mention a research question. In a literature review, you further justify your research question, same one, not a different one, same one. And you do it in a thematic manner. And so after presenting in a thematic manner, then you summarize it, that what has been done, what needs to be done, then you pose a formal research question. And that is linked to your literature review. As I said, all of these slides, I was doing in Gajamad at the moment. Each section I'm doing 2 hours, and I'm doing it with a number of papers that I'm going through with them. So it takes a long time, sort of do it, to justify this kind of presentation. But and I'm doing it very quickly, and I hope that I'll be able to contact you again at some point in future. Then I'll be able to do it better way, I guess, with more details, more examples, and more kind of opportunity for everyone to ask me a question. Okay. Next part of the literature review theoretical framework. As I said, it is not important, it is not needed, as long as you establish the gap in the literature, but some journals would want it, but public sector journals appears to not very interested, unless you use theoretical framework as your point of departure. So usually that if you use theoretical framework, I guess it can come from the existing literature, that what they have used so far, or we can borrow from various kinds of other disciplines, which I did in my research career. As you already mentioned that in the introduction, that I published in Sociology Journal, I published in Economic Journal, and other interdisciplinary journals. So we always, I read from other disciplines. So hence that I was able to bring new theories to accounting literature. But not everyone would do that. And also it's not needed for public sector journals. So that means that then you sometimes, okay, ask, how do I select a theory? Which one is good for me? Which one is not good for me? Is basically, you have to think, first of all, whether you need a theory at all. Okay, if answer is yes, then you say, okay, what is the most relevant? Which theory is actually explained better my context? So take that theory. So basically, as long as you justify your theoretical framework or theory, that is enough. And use theory as your guide to explain findings, not as a kind of a signboard. So theory must be relevant to the findings, to the research question, and also research context. Okay, if you have a question, please write those questions on your chat box. I'll come back to you. The second, next section is research method. So a few things I'm going to mention it. I hope probably not everything I will be able to mention it. One of the few things that one always should do when they write their research method section is that they must be justified. So you must say why this research method is particularly relevant to this journal, to this article. So this section should justify the method, because otherwise that reviewer would be saying, okay, so this method you're taking, is it relevant to your question? So to address those kind of concern, you must justify the method that you've taken. So usually it comes from the literature review as well. So you can always say, this is the method have been used by previous studies and things like that. You can always justify it, but justify it. And justify every single method that you have taken. It could be sample or could be a particular case. I think in case of sample or particular case, you can justify it here. Also, you can justify it in introduction, because we always justify our research context to further make it, emphasize the importance of this research context to address our research question. So in some cases, we justify our case in the introduction, but you can also do so here in the research matter section. Yeah, so for case study, I think it is important to explain how data was analyzed. How did you get from the mass of information collected to the story told? So basically, how did you collect data? How did you analyze that? And how did you find themes? How did you come back to the findings you're presenting? So gives as much as data as possible. And I have a paper actually is very good in kind of giving a guideline to the author, what kind of things they have to provide in a research method section. So how details you should go to, especially for quality researcher, to convince the reader, to convince the editor that this is a authentic, this is a reliable, and this is a valid case study. So write as much detail as possible of your data collection. In fact, if you write more details of your data collection, actually it gives more authenticity that you actually have done the field work. So you think that sometimes, oh, should I write these details? Is it relevant? I think if you think that for example, one of the case study that our co-author that had to spend 7 hours in the security office to do one interview. So those kind of details, if you put up in your research matter section, it actually gives more authenticity to the reviewer. So do that. Mention all of the details that are necessary. I think it is relevant. Sometimes people feel they're not relevant, but do that first in the first instance, because that is if the number of words allows you to do it. So because we don't have much words anyway, so do that within the constraint that paper or journal give you. Okay, so I think I mentioned that slides in, yeah. So write the matter section as directly, as clearly as possible. When I say directly, just say, I have done this, obviously to follow the instruction of the journal. Sometimes journal actually tell you how to write these kind of sections. They sometimes say write it in a past tense or write it as a present tense. So make sure that you listen to those instructions, read those instructions, but write as directly as possible. And ask your colleagues to read it, because this is an important part of the research process. When we write it, we don't know whether we're clear. We thought we are clear, but in fact we are not. So if you allow the other people to read your paper, read your research matter section, they will understand that, okay, you haven't mentioned this. How did you get from this step to that other step? Can you give me more details? So present the paper, ask your colleague to read your research method section is really good. Then you get to see where you are going wrong, or you're jumping, or you need more details. So can I ask the moderator, how long do I have?
Yes, Prof. You have around 15 minutes left.
15 minutes left only.
Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately. So what I then, so this is kind of a general points for the research method. I think because then people would be asking probably a few more questions. So what I like to go to this section, discussion section, which is quite important. Discussion section is about your findings, marriage between findings and literature. So you not only report what you found, it also compare and contrast what other people's found. So also this should go beyond the findings themselves. It's not just a discussion of findings. Discussion section is, you sometimes use theoretical concept if you have to say something more than empirical findings. So explore the implications. Basically, what you have to do, if you don't have a theoretical concept, then you say that how you discuss how your findings is contributing to the broad research issues, how is contributing to the intellectual puzzle. Remember, in the introduction section, you identified the academic debate or intellectual puzzle or gap in the literature. You then discuss it here with your findings, how you have done that. So basically, this is the most important section in any journal. If you have a weak discussion section, then you'll get reviews after reviews after reviews and never get to publish it. So key thing is, think about your findings and think about your literature review and try to marry them together in your discussion section. And then you also think about how you are contributing to the academic debate. So you already said, this is the way you're going to contribute to the academic debate, and mention it here in this section. So this will then help you that to say, this is how I'm actually enhancing the knowledge in the field. So in our paper, for instance, in the budget politics paper for Indonesia, what we did is in this section, we then explain so how these cultural conditions, then we empirical illustration of cultural conditions, we then compared with the budget politics and the literature, and then said, okay, these cultural conditions are, this is the way that are shaping the budget politics in Indonesia or in one particular local government. So this is the way to do it. So basically, findings that you use here with the literature to make sure that you explicitly say how you're contributing to the knowledge. So this is the part of the discussion. And finally, of course, the conclusion section. This should be kept short and set out the paper's contribution. So it should not be talking too much. The answer, you should be able to answer here. So what question? Why this research is important to academically, and also why is it important to policy, if it is there is a policy implication. Also, you should, I think it's quite importantly, acknowledge the limitation of the study, and which means that you're also acknowledging or elaborating the future potential or future area of research in this section. However, always finish on a positive note and make sure that you focus what has been achieved, not what has not been done. So this is kind of a conclusion, but I think I wanted to focus on the practical help, how you actually write an article and then submit to a good journal. So how you to be strategic, how you should be about how you should handle the reviewer concerns. First, practical help. When you write a paper, what do you do? I mean, so far I said you need to write a introduction, good literature review, and so on and so forth. But I wanted to tell you a bit more about my experience and my way of doing it. So perhaps that could be, you might take it as a kind of one source of information, I guess. So each paragraph, in my view, should be seen as a staircase, which ultimately lead you to the final fold. So unfold, you slowly don't say anything at once. You try go step by step as a sequence. That's what I do. And that helps me to sort of provide some clarity of thought. So don't go everything together, but I go kind of a staircase. So one step by another next step. You have to ensure all the terms are clearly defined. And this is quite important, and use it consistently. I always see that people use different terms, different abbreviation in different places. For example, sometimes they call it Management Accounting MA, then calling it Management Accounting System MAS in the same paper. So it's confusing. Make sure that all the terms are used consistently. And if it is not widely known, for example, management accounting, we know is fine if you do MA, but if it is not widely known, always use fully. So do not try to use abbreviation. And that's really, really annoying for many editors and reviewers. Just use full thing rather than abbreviating it unnecessarily. Careful about the confusing words in terms of that in different meaning. Make sure that sometimes one word could mean double meaning. So about that, avoid that. Do not change term just for linguistic style, simply to use different words. So use the same linguistic style. Ensure constant terms from sentence to sentence. There is no change, should not change anything, just following the same thing. So basically, sometimes we don't see it as a reader, as an author, and sometimes if you use proofreader, that's a good way to sort of solve a lot of problems that I mentioned. And some of the journals actually allow you to use their proofreading system. So you can use them to make sure that you sort of not doing all those making all those mistakes. And always, if somebody else is look at your paper, they always say something different. So it's good to use proofreader. All points should be supported by arguments or by evidence. So when you make a statement, if it is not from your empirical evidence, then you at least have to support by other literature. So if it is supported by evidence, that's fine, also mention it. So points should be supported by evidence or by logical arguments. So evidence could come from your study or from the literature. So references, again, another thing I wanted to mention here. To support your statement, you don't have to mention too many references, because I've seen that one sentence comes with the 5 lines of references. There is no need for that. Only use key article to support your statement. There is no need for showing the people that I have read a lot of papers. There is no need for that. In fact, that's a bad practice. Avoid that. Where you use references, they must be relevant, meaning that sometimes people add references without knowing what this reference is for. So do not use unnecessary references. That's the point I'm making. I think same point I mentioned, avoid unsubstantiated assertions, meaning that your claim must be borne by evidence or literature. So do not make too much claim, but specific claim is more important. Be very careful about making more general claims than your evidence support. So I think paper usually publish if you make very narrow claim and with huge amount of support, evidence. But sometimes you make too many claims, you think that would be good. Actually, it's a bad idea. I think as a if you are a good academic, always find a focused research question, very focused claim, very small claim, and that is usually enough for a good publication in a top journal. I'm talking about Q1 here. I'm not talking about any other Q2, Q3. I'm sure Q2, Q3 paper published with some general claims, but if you want to make specific claims, specific contribution, very narrow contribution is sufficient. Avoid long and complex sentences, because some people write like one sentence, 6-line long. I actually counted once. It had 150 words in one sentence. So that's too long. So one has to avoid those long sentences, just make it several. Finally, be careful with the use of past and present tense, because you have a look at the journal author's instruction. Some papers actually mention how you should write it. They could say, okay, write in past tense and or write in present tense. Look at that if there is an instruction of that nature. So the paper that will never be just rejected, and I think will be published if it has a catchy beginning, contribution to the debate. And if you demonstrate the scope of the literature, meaning you have read key articles in the area, and you have a clear interview, clear contributions. It could be just empirical contribution, or it could also be theoretical contribution, or by both. So one of these contributions is enough to publish in a top journal. When I say empirical contribution, I mean contribution to the literature. Some people use theory to contribute to the literature. That is theoretical contribution. So that also enough, or a bit of both. That's good. But one of these contributions is enough to publish in a top journal. Good data set is a good thing. Basically, if you use a case, use the deeper case information. If you use a statistics, make sure you use very good data set. And also, if you have a theory, use relevant one, not the irrelevant one, and use them. If you use a theory, please use your theory with your findings. If you don't use them, there is no point of a theory. And acknowledge the limitation of the paper. This is quite important, because in that sense, you show that you were what you achieved and what you could not achieve. So it's important that you identify potential areas for further investigation. Okay, so this slide is about being a strategy, how to send a paper to a journal. I think that we had a question before from an audience. Yeah,
Yes,
I've said that. Yeah, they send the question. They send the paper to journal, and I said, yeah, it's because when you send the paper to a journal, you must read the journal first. So read the scopes of the journal, find out the potential readers before you send your paper to that journal. So do not send your paper to a journal which is not interested in your paper. And see, what I do, I take a lot of research first. I find out who was on the editorial board of that journal, who are the editors. And then also make sure you refer articles from the journal you're sending to. So you basically have to do a bit of research before you send the article to the journal. So making sure that you're referring to the references or debates that happening within that journal in your paper before you send to the journal. So if you send a paper to a journal and you're not contributing to the debate that is going on in that journal, that means either your paper is not relevant to the journal or you have never sort of read that journal. So it's important that you read the articles from the journal that you're sending to. Make sure no language problem. Please proofread it before sending it to the journal. and it doesn't cost you money. It does cost you money, but at least it does save you from desk rejection. Often I've seen very, very good paper, but it's difficult to read. So please send the paper to the proofreader. Read the instruction of the journal. For instance, we receive papers from, say, Greece, but Greece is not emerging economy, so I have to reject the paper. So please read the instruction of the journal before you send it. So when your paper are considered for the review, then basically half job done. That's the very good outcome, because in my journal, I at least desk reject 50% of the paper because of some of the issues that I mentioned earlier. Either no debate mentioned, or no contribution, or no very bad paper in terms of English, but very good paper in terms of academic contents, but bad paper for the language. And those are the reasons why I had to desk reject a lot of papers. So if you get your paper considered for the review, that is half job done. So once you receive the reviews, I think I call it the game begins. So you must at least appear to consider the reviewer's comments. Very carefully read it. And yeah, do not rush it, even if it's small revision. Sometimes I've seen that people get a small revision and they send it following day. There's no need. You get a revise and resubmit report, you read it carefully, you take time, and then submit. So there's no reason for you to rush it. And also follow every single comments reviewer provided. You don't have to agree with the reviewer's comments. If you do not agree, then please provide a response why you do not agree with the reviewers. So be careful with the response to the reviewers. Do not be sending insulting words. Often some people are so angry when they receive the reviews. So, but you have to be careful. Basically, when I say game begins, it means that you have to convince 2 reviewers or 3 reviewers that you are writing the papers for. So you have to convince these people, and you cannot convince these people by being aggressive to them. So, but you can say disagree with the reviewers. That's not a problem. So polite disagreement is perfectly okay. Take extension if you need. Journal editors always, not all journals, but many journals are always happy to give you extension if they feel this paper is a good one. So there's no harm writing to the editors saying, this is the reason I cannot finish within the deadline. Can you please give me some extension? So do that. Yeah, be firm but polite if you do not agree with the reviewers. Okay, so that's what conclude my presentation. And so this is a time for me to respond the question that we might have, or you might have. You can ask me questions. So moderator, you.
Yes, Prof. Thank you very much, Prof. Very impressive presentation. I hope we learned a lot from you, which is how to publish in high-ranking journal. And there are 3 questions here, Prof. The first question is how to find relevance or good problem issue, Prof. Like data problem issue, so the paper can be easily accepted in good journal. The question from Haikal.
Okay, I think it's a very good question. Basically, the question is about how I find the academic debate or find the gap in the literature, right? This is the question, I guess, right? This is a person. Yeah. So this is not easy. So can I share my own experience? How actually I have gone through with this kind of looking for the gap. So I think probably I should do that here because I've shared this experience with other colleagues as well. So this is a paper not about public sector. And this is an example giving it to you because probably you can, have the same kind of situation. So this is a paper on CSR, not a public sector. So the paper, I think someone was working on the paper and couldn't publish it and send it to me. And then I immediately realized why they couldn't publish it, because there is no academic debate in it. So there is no gap in the literature established. So what I did then, I looked into, I saw their paper is about drivers of CSR. What drives CSR? What drives businesses to do CSR? So I did the literature review, and we found a lot of factors. And those factors, so that doesn't mean that so a lot of drivers. So how our papers fit in that? Then we realized this is so our drivers are slightly different. So our data set was historical from one period to another period. So then we narrowed it down to changes to CSR over time. So from the drivers of CSR, we then narrowed it down to changes to CSR over time. So then we further reviewed the literature, and we thought, yeah, we found few papers talking about how CSR changes over time. There are not many papers, but some papers there. So that what would be our contribution in that? Then we realized our context, our research context, giving us a very specific type of changes that happen. So I look at the context and data, and I realize this is, in our case, it is because of political changes in political parties that driving the changes to CSR. So that's our gap. We said then make a claim. A lot of studies have done research on why company make changes to CSR in a different period, and no one has focused on the politics and CSR relationship. And this is our gap. So by reading the literature and the reflecting on the context you're coming from, that gives you inspiration to find gap in the literature. Sorry, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, is it Haikal? I hope it's answer your questions, or do you have any comments, Haikal? And then maybe you can come back later, and then we can go to question. He said that no, thank you, Prof. And then the question from Daniel, Prof. Shahzad. The question from Daniel: how to achieve good journal standard with a real Sinta level 1? Sinta is what we call the types of journal in Indonesia, Prof. It's like local index. Like I think it's related to the question number 1 also, and how to get the appropriate title. Would you mind to give them example how to create good example of title of journal, Prof? Yeah, thank you, Prof.
Okay, so how to achieve journal standard with the real Sinta level 1. So basically, as long as you have a contribution to the academic debate, that will take you to the level 1. So if your paper makes an academic contribution, makes a contribution to the academic debate within the public sector or any other journal, that should help you to publish in a top journal. So I mentioned number of top journal. I guess those are the Sinta level 1, right?
Yes,
so,
Sinta level 1.
So in those journals, all they're looking for, whether your paper is contributing to the debate within the public sector. And if that is happening, that is enough. It doesn't matter it's coming from Indonesia or anywhere else. As long as you establish the fact that your paper contributing to the academic debate, you'll be able to publish it. And how to get appropriate title, meaning journal title or article title?
Article title, Prof. They want to make a journal, so how to attract that the title is what we call that interesting title.
You mean not journal title, but article?
Journal,
how you use? Is it journal title, like journal?
yeah, journal title. Yeah, journal title, Prof.
How to get appropriate title for this? I think I already mentioned that. So you can go to Q1 SGR, right? SGR. They have a Q1 list. So those are the top level journal titles that one should go for. Is that they meant or something else?
Yeah, is it correct, Pak Daniel?
Yes, sir.
All right. It's you want to what we call that, looking for journal title, or looking for how to find good journal, or you want to create a journal title?
Yes, sir. How to can journal title
Okay.
to
So
Simkawan.
basically, yeah, it's good. So SGR Q1 SGR Shemigo Journal Ranking is a good way to see the top titles. So the sort of first quarter accounting titles or business management or any discipline. So SGR is a good database worldwide, right? So Q1 is a
Yes,
list of good
Q1.
titles.
No, yeah, it's related to Scopus Index, Prof, for the level 1, Sinta level 1. Yeah. And then we have the last question, Prof, from Ibu Penny Trisnawati. I think you can, what the question is, I assume it is necessary to determine theory at the first, but what if the researcher determine theory after they collect the data and writing first?
Yeah, that's fine. Again, good question. Penny is asking very good question. Yeah, so it's perfect. It's not a problem. Yes, often we use theory before we collect data. But sometimes after collecting data, we realize this theory is not helping. This theory not helping us to explain the data. So it's perfectly okay if you change the theory. And many of our researchers have done that when they write the papers. So you can change the, just 1 second, somebody's knocking my door.
All right, okay, keep on.
Knocking my hotel door.
All right, okay, bro.
Yeah, so it's a good question from Fanny. Yeah. So we are saying, yes, you can change the data. Sorry, change the theory.
All right, Prof. Actually, is there any other question from the audience, please? I give you around 5 minutes before we finish up this, what we call that, before I offer to the MC for this seminar. Because, and there's some of the participants also message me, Prof, they want to, if it is okay for you to give us your slide for our guidance.
Okay, so I'm already promising a lot of things. I'll indeed send some slides to you guys.
Okay, Prof, do you mind to stay after what we call that? Because I want to discuss about my professor asking me to discuss about what we call it special issue after this session is finished. Like 10 minutes only, Prof. I need your time.
Okay.
Do
Sure.
you? Yeah. Do you? Okay, Prof. So thank you very much for everybody to join very good seminar in this morning, and I hope you learn a lot from this presentation from Professor Shahzad Udin. And then I offer back to Pak Masun. Pak Masun, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Darussalam. Thank you, Prof. Shahzad Udin. Before I speak our closing, maybe Prof. Elina from Universitas Sumatera Utara will deliver your speech. Prof. Elina.
She cannot, Pak Masun.
Okay. Maybe Dr. Fahruzaman Hanafi from Universitas Bengkulu. Maybe you will deliver your speech or a presentation from Universitas Bengkulu, please. Okay. Yeah, I think I will continue this program. Once again, I said very thank you for Prof. Shahzad Udin on behalf the Association of Public Sector Accounting Educators in Indonesia. I will deliver our closing statement in this program, that this program had cooperation with our co-host, Universitas Bengkulu and Universitas Sumatera Utara. And I think this program can succeed by supported from all universities in Indonesia as a participant to the event. I hope this program can inspire all us to work more in public sector accounting, research, and publication. So don't forget to always follow our program, namely the visiting professor. Apsae as a hub international can invite many experts like Prof. Shahzad Udin for discuss for all, especially for lecture in public sector accounting in Indonesia. Once again, thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much for all. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. Prof. Shahzad, maybe we can stay for 2 hours.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you. Because I want to discuss about my professor asking me, my director asking me to what we call that, to discuss with you regarding our how to create special issue. I think after we can discuss 2 of us. Can I have your email, Prof? I think you.
I'm going to give you my WhatsApp number.
Yeah, please. So I can create another link now.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can call me in the WhatsApp, then we can sort of talk.
All right.
From there, okay.
All right, Prof. All right, Prof. Okay. So this is I already direct message to you, Prof. Darussalam. All right. Okay, Prof. Thank you very much.
Okay, then. So I'll go now.
So okay. So do you mind to? Do you have to have a rest first, or we can continue around 12. Is it okay?
Yeah, you can call me now. I'm leaving this.
Okay, okay. Thank you,
very
Prof.
much.
Okay, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much for inviting me again. And I hope
Yes,
you
Prof.
found it very useful.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Bye-bye, Prof. Prof Indra, thank you, Prof. Pak Ibu Didin, Pak Masun, thank you. Bye-bye. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah.